Friends, Namaskar. This is Jitu from Odisha Journeys. Welcome to yet another episode of Odisha Journeys. Friends, it was in the early part of the 19th century, the British introduced a kind of plantation which is called teak plantations. It was in Kerala where they introduced for the first time. And over a period of time, teak plantations and teak forests were created across the country, including Odisha's Barbara forest, which is not very far from Bhubaneswar, about 2 hours drive from Bhubaneswar, not very far from Chilka Lake. It is in the Kalikot range of the Eastern Ghats. Barbara forest looks very green, serene. It is a major habitat of elephants. There are beautiful water bodies, waterfalls, small and big. Then you have the abodes of various tribes, indigenous communities. One of them is Kons. Friends, it is a paradise for tourists. But today I am going to tell you about a very other aspects and environmental aspects and ecological aspects of Barbara forest. Friends, India and also Odisha is home to various native plants. In Odisha we have like Sala, Pyasala, then you have Bahada, Harida, Jamun, then you have various kinds of palm trees like such as Salapa and Khajuri, that is date palms. So you have a varieties of native plants and trees. But because of this teak forest which was introduced by the British, here you would not find any other native plants. So the teak plant, the teak trees which rise up to up to 20-30 meters in height, and it has a trunk which has about a fully grown teak tree which has the trunk has somewhere around 2 to 3 meter diameter, and it's a BD plant. So it absorbs a lot of moisture and doesn't allow the other plants to grow in the vicinity. So when the British planted large number of teak trees in rows, they may look aesthetically pleasing, but there is a dark side also into it. So earlier in the 19th century, when this forest was created, it was full of native plants. And according to the report of the Puri district gazetteers, so a lot of local communities, as I said, Kons, Sabaras, the indigenous communities, and also the Indo-Aryan communities such as Odias, so they were depending on this forest, for their livelihood. But the British did not like it. So they prevented the natives to come inside the forest, and then they started these plantations. Remember, during this time, Europe was going through the industrial revolutions and the railways were spreading. So there was a heavy demand of teak trunks all across the British colonies. So that is the reason these plantations had started. So you may be knowing about plantations in Philippines, plantations in Malaysia, in Fiji, and then also in Latin America, and how Indians, the peasants, Indian peasants, they were forced to migrate to these territories which were alien territories for them and involved in the plantation activities. So this is another side of history. But here in Odisha at Barbara, so the natives were prevented to enter to the forest and use the natural resources with which they were acquainted with hundreds of years. And the British started, introducing this teak forest, and it also over a period of time killed so many other native plants, and also the animals which were depending on, such as there were a large number of herbivorous animals, their population also started dwindling. So this is the dark side. Friends, when you visit there, you go to the cone communities, the habitats of cone communities, and listen to their stories, especially their subsistence agriculture practices, their conflict with elephants, and the other problems they face. Here you meet people, those who are hunter-gatherers. They would show you how they have been catching crabs from the mountain streams, which is a delicacy in the indigenous culture. So we had just done a story on crabs in the remote Deomari range. So here also they have a practice of gathering crabs from the mountain streams. That also you will see. Friends, I am in a village which is on the outskirts of Barbara forest. It is actually in the buffer area of Barbara forest, and this village is called Jirpada. And here there is a branch of Kond they live, and he is Jitendra Jani. He is one of the residents here, and I am going to ask some questions about the local life here. So, कितने दिन लाइन आपने इधर इधर? So they have been living here for last 15 years here, and so गाँव रे कौन हाथी और का आसंदी? Okay. So this village, the entire area is infested by elephants. So that is what they say. Elephants create a lot of problems for them. And this is a big issue in Odisha. Wherever you go, in the forested area of Odisha, you hear the human-animal conflicts, human-elephant conflicts. That's a very, it's a very common thing in Odisha. How come problem ଅଛି ଗାଁରେ?
प्रॉब्लम कौन तो हाथी तो बहुत मात्रा में फसल वाली की चीज नहीं।
ओके।
तापर जाई दूर सब फसल करछन व्यस्त बाजार रे।
ओके।
तो गाँ रे मित्र भी एबे सेंदी के लोक नांदे।
हां।
जे के भी सब जाके मिल रहे।
Okay, so these people are farmers now. They don't depend on forest. Of course, they depend on the forest resources, but they are not hunter-gatherers. They are farmers, subsistence farmers. They do also kitchen farming, and whatever they grow, they sell in the market, nearby markets. And the whole area. That's what they say, that elephants are the major problems here. They create a lot of nuisance. They they damage the harvested crops here. So Sanjay Babu, टिके बड़ पाटे कहबे हाँ कहतु माने कौन जंतु देखा देखु
आमर जंगल रे हाथी
हाँ
बिलुआ
अच्छा
बारहा झिक अमेरिक श्रृगाल विभिन्न प्रकार पशु पक्षी अच्छा
अच्छा से माने केबे हैरान करन आपण मानकु
आज्ञा हाथी आसिकी आमर जंगल नष्ट कर दोजंदी काजू दिने काजू गछ उपाड़ दोजंदी भांगी दोजंदी तापर पणस अछि पणस दिन आसी पणस नष्ट कर दोजंदी अच्छा तो रक्षा पे कौन कर हाथी टू रक्षा आम हाथी की पार्टी करी गहली करी सब लोक मिसिकी तड़ू
अच्छा अच्छा आउ कौन जंगल उपर आपण कौन केमती डिपेंड करती
जंगल रो आम जाइकी माने हमर जहाँ आवश्यक फल
हाँ
जो कोली गुरा कुसुम कोली आज्ञा इन विभिन्न प्रकार कोली अछि जंगल रे से कोली के आणु तापर काठ अछि हमर जंगल रे आम खाइबा पई रोसे करबा पई काठ जंगल रो आणु आज्ञा किसी औषधीय गछ किसी हाँ औषधीय गछ भी अशोक गछ अच्छी अच्छा अशोक गछ भी औषधीय गछ तापर आउरी कौन कहते सेटा मन पड़नी विभिन्न प्रकार औषध गछ भी अच्छी
बहुत प्रकार औषधीय गछ अच्छी कंकड़ा भी धरती
आज्ञा कंकड़ा आम धरुचु कंकड़ा
जंगल भितर
आज्ञा जंगल
माछ कोड आनती
से जंगल भितर जंगल
छोट छोट गाड़िया अच्छी आज्ञा झरना अच्छी सब अच्छा जंगल उपर आपण माने पूरा टोटली डिपेंडेंट आज्ञा ओके आउ कौन माने आगुर कौन थला एबे केमती हेछि गाँर अवस्था
देखो आगुरु आमर माने सुविधा किछि नथिला माने रास्ता घाट भी किछि नथिला आम गाँ को जंगल माड़ी रहितला तापर एमती धीरे धीरे रास्ता भी हैला जंगल सफा कलु निजे लोक लागिकरी तापर धीरे धीरे गाँ टिके भल अछि
धन्यवाद सो वी जस्ट लिसनड अबाउट फ्रॉम Sanjay about Barbara forest, the various animals they are found here, and how do they depend on the forest resources. So he explained about all about Barbara forest. Then you will also listen to the story of Barbara. There is a beautiful legend about Barbara, who was a British lady. In the early part of the 19th century, when this forest was dense, so that time, she and her husband had ventured into the forest, and they had gone on a hunting game expeditions, where they were supposed to kill a tiger, but it was unfortunate that Lady Barbara was killed by a tiger, and under the grief, her husband named it Barbara Forest. So this is a beautiful legend associated with Barbara Forest. And then you have beautiful water bodies called Sadia Dam, which is not very far from this picturesque Barbara Forest. Here you see the fisherman involved in the age-old practice of fishing. You also see a raft. Raft is hardly used in Odisha now. So it is a relic from the prehistoric time. They use rafts for catching fish, and this is mind-blowing experience. And we have Chilika, not very far from here, where you have Borkul, where you have a ethnic resort called the Museum Resort, Odi Art Museum Resort, which is made out of bamboo cottages, the beautiful cottages, which can host your stay at Chilika, and then venture into this territory of Barbara and also the Sadia Dam. And that would give you a very different kind of experience. Friends, we at Odisha Journeys provide such kind of curated experience for you. It could be a day trip to Barbara Forest and Sadia Dam from Bhubaneswar, because it is just 2 hours drive. Or if you want to stay for one night, overnight, or a couple of nights, then you have this beautiful property of museum, the Odi Art Museum Resort in Chilka, which is about 10 to 15 kilometers from Barbara Forest. So do consider Odisha Journeys when you are planning for a weekend trip to Barbara, and immerse yourselves in the forest as well as also in the country culture, in the life of the country people, such as Kons and Sabaras. Thank you so much.